They thought they stopped a nobody, another woman walking in the wrong neighborhood. What didn't they know? She was one of the most powerful women in America. The city of Manhattan hums with energy. The sun filters through towering skyscrapers, casting long shadows on the pavement. Taxi horns blare, coffee carts steam, and Wall Street professionals march toward their next meeting. The sidewalk buzzes with a blend of urgency and routine. Nia Johnson, just like every other American, walked like she belonged. Because she did. She wasn't rushing. She wasn't lost. She moved with grace, calm, focused, and sharp. A Harvard graduate, an international diplomat, appointed by the president himself. She had dined with presidents, debated with world leaders. But this morning she wasn't behind a podium. She was walking to the United Nations building to deliver a speech on racial profiling, a speech about justice, bias, and dignity. Her walk showcased her demeanor. In a tailored navy blue wool coat, crisp slacks, modest heels, she walks graciously like someone heading for the royal stage to receive a royal handshake. A leather satchel was slung over her shoulder. Her hair is wrapped neatly in a patterned scarf. She moves through the crosswalk as a cyclist swerves around her. She doesn't flinch, just like anyone on a cause. Just in that moment, her phone vibrates loudly as the ringtone erupts through the noisy, busy street, just loud enough to draw her attention. Nia takes out her phone, and with spark and poise in her voice, she speaks to the caller. "Yes, Mrs. Anderson, I'm 5 minutes away. Don't start without me, and don't forget to tell the delegation that I'll be there before the gavel drops." She finishes, and just as she hangs up, a set of scrutinizing eyes follow her every step she takes. A police cruiser sits idle beside a fire hydrant across the street. Inside, two officers observe Nia from behind tinted glass, and suspicion brews in silence. Officer Blake, white, early 40s, bitter, resting his elbow on the open window, stares hard at Nia as if he is calculating the speed at which she walks. Only that something dark lurks behind those eyes. Beside him is Officer Green, a younger officer in his mid-20s. He watches on nervously. "There she is," Blake said quite confidently as she scribed something in his pocket jotter. "You sure?" "She just looks like she's walking to work," Officer Green countered. He knows something sinister lurks around, and he is not ready to be a part of it. Blake narrows his eyes, his jaw clenched. "Walking too confidently for someone without something to hide? I think not." And yet again in her defense, Officer Green said quietly, defiantly, "That's not a crime from where I see it." Blake said firmly, ignoring Officer Green as he confidently stepped out of the car. "Well, it wouldn't be a crime if we checked her out, would it?" Their car door opens with a slow creak. The engine remained running. One hand on his radio, the other hovered near his duty belt. And just like that, the day took a turn. Or the two officers and for unsuspecting Nia. As Nia waits at a crosswalk, she glances at her watch, then at the UN building just 3 blocks away. She takes a step forward, but just as she is about to walk across the crosswalk, the sharp male voice on an obviously police radio makes her suddenly swerve around. Blake said sharply as he closed the space between them, "Ma'am, stop right there." His hand, hovering near his duty belt, is now inches away from the speed cuffs and gun, as though he is expecting a combat. Nia, though startled initially, is now calm as her eyes narrowed in confusion, as she quietly studies the officer's motives. "Excuse me? Is there a problem, officer?" she finally said with a quizzical look as she patiently waits for Blake to close up the space between them. Green lingers behind Blake, uneasy as Blake now stands before Nia. "You match a description," he says, squaring up to her with disgust written all over his face. Nia responds calmly, yet firmly, without flinching. "What description would that be?" Blake responds with utter disdain. "Black woman, navy coat, traveling alone." 3 details. That was all it took. In a city of millions of strangers. Nia raises an eyebrow. She glances around. A crowd begins to slow as passers-by take cognizance of the slowly building drama. Nia can feel anger slowly building below her temple. She is just not sure if this is a prank or the ugly reality of every day in America about to happen to her. 1,001 words suddenly surge forward in her throat. but she just has to stay composed and watch this play out. That describes at least 1,000 women on this street right now, she finally utters, feigning a smile. Blake, ignoring the now large number of onlookers, stepped closer towards Nia. I need to see your ID. Nia stays still, calm, but her heart quickens. She knows she is already racing against time for her speech. Thus, one more look at the UN building makes her blood boil even louder inside her veins. However, she knew better than to make rash decisions. Not today, not ever. If there is anything life has taught Nia, it is how to handle people like Officer Blake. She knows quite well that should there be any form of confrontation from her, the scenario would change, and the opportunity the officer is looking for to frame her would swiftly land on his lap. She'd rather be late than make a mistake she'd regret for the rest of her life. If her being a woman didn't shield her, neither did her outfit, which exudes affluence, then a mere confrontation cannot. She stands helplessly as onlookers watch her every move intently, as if expecting a brutal response from her. She is, however, determined to disappoint them, so she summons her deepest composure after taking a long, calculated deep breath. Why exactly are you stopping me, officer? Blake, with clipped authority, says as he continues to close in on Nia. Because I said so. Now let me see your ID. I am not going to ask again. Seeing the motive, Nia exhales and slowly reaches for her bag. Green watches her hand, tense. She has been trained to remain calm in the face of adversity, to speak with clarity in difficult times, and not to escalate an already worse situation. But why was she expected to de-escalate a situation she never caused? A white biker pulls out her phone and starts filming as the situation right before them looks tense, with an unpredictable next line of action. A teen girl across the street stops walking on her track and starts walking closer as the crowd slowly builds. The teen girl asks one of the bystanders, who is also filming the scene, almost in a whisper, "Is she in trouble?" And in her head, Nia Johnson knows that no matter how quiet she is or how calmly she walks, this trouble looks like it isn't going to go away anytime soon. So she makes up her mind to see to the root of this lurking danger. Nia's fingers unzipped her satchel as she reached inside a navy blue booklet with a gold crest. The navy blue booklet slid from her bag with the kind of quiet weight that carried entire nations behind it. Gold embossed, sleek, undeniable. United States of America. Diplomatic passport. Nia Johnson held it up, not high, not boastfully, but with the grace of someone who didn't need to shout to be heard. The crowd gasped. Someone near the back muttered, "Wait, is that?" Officer Blake froze. His fingers, which moments ago hovered near his cuffs like he was ready for battle, now twitched mid-air, awkwardly, as if unsure whether to salute or retreat. But it was too late for either. Nia opened the passport slowly, revealing the photo page. Her name, her title, the official seal. A White House clearance tucked neatly inside. She said nothing, because the look on Blake's face said everything. His jaw slackened. His eyes darted between the passport and the growing crowd. Someone was still filming. Several people were whispering. The biker with the phone gave a play-by-play on her live stream. Looks like she's someone important. Real important. Officer Green leaned in from behind, peeking over Blake's shoulder. The young officer's brows shot up. She's a diplomat, Green whispered. Like a real one. Blake's throat clicked as he swallowed. Nia finally spoke. Measured, precise, the way one speaks to someone about to fall through the ice, they crack themselves. I'm en route to the United Nations, she said, where I'm giving a keynote address on racial profiling. Blake took half a step back, his authority dissolving in plain sight. I didn't realize. You matched the description, he stammered, his tone shaky now. You mean I matched your description? Nia said sharply, but still without raising her voice. Black, alone, confident? Murmurs spread through the crowd. Someone said, say that again. Another. They messed with the wrong one. Blake turned red. But Nia wasn't done. You drew your conclusions before I said a word, before you asked a question, before you even saw a threat, except you did see one. She took a step closer, not aggressively, but deliberately. The diplomat who once stood before world leaders now stood before a man undone by his own prejudice. The threat wasn't what I carried, it was who I was. And you didn't stop to wonder. You stopped to assume. Officer Green was still frozen. He looked at Blake, then back at Nia, then down at the ground. Blake opened his mouth to say something, anything, but he was interrupted by applause, slow. One person, then two, then the whole crowd. It wasn't loud, not wild, but it was powerful. It wasn't just applause for a passport, it was for the composure, the poise, the quiet strength. The biker turned her phone camera toward herself. And just like that, Officer Blake's little ego trip got checked by a woman with more credentials than he'll ever see in his life. Nia tucked the passport back into her satchel, looked once more at the UN building in the distance. Her time was running close. She turned to Blake one last time. I'd ask for your badge number, but something tells me I won't need it. Then she walked. She didn't run. She didn't look back. She walked like she had every right to, because she did, and the street parted for her. But the story didn't end there, because 15 minutes later she stood at the podium, inside the UN, late by 7 minutes, but with a story now too real to ignore. She stood before diplomats from over 30 nations and began her speech, not from her notes, but from lived experience. This morning I was stopped by a man with a badge who believed he had the right to detain me for matching his definition of suspicious. He didn't know who I was. He didn't care. Because to him, being black, walking alone, and walking confidently was enough to justify force. But today I chose not to raise my voice or raise my hands. I raised my passport, and it stopped him in his tracks. But let me be clear, I shouldn't need a passport to walk to work without being profiled. None of us should. Silence, then thunderous applause. But even louder than the applause was the echo of truth rippling through that chamber. Because that wasn't just a speech, it was a mirror, and people saw themselves in it. Later that evening, Officer Green sat alone in his patrol car, still shaken. He re-watched the footage from a civilian's live stream, saw himself standing behind Blake, doing nothing, saying little. He picked up his phone, dialed internal affairs. I need to report an incident, he said, and this time I'm not looking the other way. The next morning, Nia received a call from the president's press secretary. Word had spread. The administration wanted to make a statement, but Nia declined. No press. No statement. Let the footage speak for itself. Then she hung up and went back to writing, because the next speech she was planning was for young women like her. Women who walk the line between grace and rage every day. Women who carry worlds in their purses and still get followed. Women who, too often, are told to be quiet when their very presence speaks volumes. They saw a black woman walking alone and assumed she was powerless. What they didn't know was that she carried the weight of nations in her satchel and the strength of generations in her silence. Because power isn't about shouting, it's about knowing when to let the truth speak for you. If you followed this story up to this point, then you are the real hero. Why don't you subscribe if you are new to this channel? We have chilling stories like Nia's to entertain, educate, and motivate you. So stick with us because the story is just getting started. That same evening, as Nia settles on her sofa in her richly furnished apartment, she turns on the TV in her massive sitting room and relaxes over a cup of cappuccino and pizza. The news splash on the screen reads, U.S. diplomat stopped by NYPD. Incident sparks national reaction. A female newscaster reads thus, this morning, a black U.S. diplomat was stopped on her way to the United Nations. The officers involved have been identified, and an internal investigation is underway. Next on the screen is the mayor of New York City, who is standing near Times Square, with many NYPD officers and journalists framing him on both sides. He said on a serious tone, no one, regardless of status or skin color, should be profiled on our streets. We've launched a full review. Watching the news, Nia isn't particularly satisfied with the latest development. She knows well enough that investigations like that always hit a dead end, because there are a lot of Officer Blakes in the system polluting the whole government agencies. So she decided that she is not going to let this one slide. People like the officer need to be taught a lesson of their lifetime, and she is ready to make it happen. The next morning, the United Nations conference hall buzzed with life yet again. Delegates and journalists have gathered yet again for day 2 of the conference. Murmurs filled the chamber as many speakers mounted the podium to deliver their speeches. Nia sat there among other delegates in silence as she pondered over the best way to start a campaign against racial profiling. She just has to find a way to drag the whole nation into it, else her voice will join the list of voices swallowed in the cause of this war. An idea strikes her mind, and her lips coils with a smile as she stands to a sounding ovation, having been announced to mount the podium for her speech. The next morning, the United Nations conference hall buzzed with life yet again. Delegates and journalists have gathered yet again for day 2 of the conference. Murmurs filled the chamber as many speakers mounted the podium to deliver their speeches. Nia sat there among other delegates in silence as she pondered over the best way to start a campaign against racial profiling. She just has to find a way to drag the whole nation into it, else her voice will join the list of voices swallowed in the cause of this war. An idea strikes her mind, and her lips coils with a smile as she stands to a sounding ovation, having been announced to mount the podium for her speech. As she stands behind the podium, all cameras and microphones are pointed in her direction. The crowd falls silent. Everyone is eager to hear from the horse's mouth. Every pen and paper is eager to jot down points. At that point, she knows she has to seize the moment. In a calm but firm voice, Nia said, "It is funny how time flies. Everything we do today soon becomes part of our past. However, some things are better held in the present, so they never have to recur. Yesterday, I was reminded that no title can erase the color of my skin in the eyes of ignorance. I was profiled, not because of anything I did, but because of everything I represent. And I represent millions. I am privileged to have an identity that saved me. My question is, what about the millions of voices out there that cannot speak because no one would give them an audience? So my message today isn't for the few privileged ones. We must take our voices to the streets because that's where the real corruption takes place. We need to flush that monster out of the system." Everyone listened in silence in pure admiration of Nia's message. They know it takes only pure courage to stand up to the system. She didn't just speak for herself. She spoke for every student, veteran, nurse, and neighbor who had been stopped, questioned, and dismissed. People in different locations across the United States are watching Nia's speech on phones and TVs across the country. Dave, Nia's best friend, had done a good job by spreading the hashtags and reaching out to various major TV stations across the country, according to Nia's request from a text message she sent him a few minutes before she mounted the podium. Social media explodes. Hashtags trend. Capture Jashishi is the ambassador. Shashur black and respected. Shashur global black voices. By the end of her speech, Nia walked down the podium satisfied that she had sent her message not just across New York, but the length and breadth of the country. Soon after she left the conference, she decided to stop by a restaurant to have a quick lunch. As she settles in for her lunch, her eyes quickly catch a glimpse of an NYPD statement on the TV screen in the restaurant. Officer Blake is shown in a still picture without his police uniform. His mood tells the whole story. Text on the screen reads, "Officer who assaulted a UN diplomat placed on administrative leave pending investigation." A flash of a satisfying smile curved Nia's lips into a smile. This is what she expected the ripples of her earlier speech to do, and she was glad it had already begun with the latest culprit. The badge that tried to silence her was now under review. In one part of the city, Officer Green sits at a bar, watching Nia's speech, shaking his head in disbelief. "We stopped a damn ambassador over a coat?" he mutters to himself in a deep sober. But the story didn't end with headlines. It started a conversation. Across departments, schools, neighborhoods, everyone was talking about it. Not every victory is loud. Some echo in silence. And that day, justice echoed around the world. Not every act of racism ends with violence. Some end when the truth stands its ground. The world didn't sleep on this story.